Kevin Gordon here from Autosavant.com, coming to you from the 2013 BMW 750 Li, the long wheelbase version of the big 7 Series. So, I'll tell you, initial impressions of this car are not great. You'll notice as I got in, one of the big issues that I've always had with BMWs, but seems to be exaggerated by the long wheelbase version of the 7, is this door pillar. It's always so far forward, and I don't know if they're doing it for crash safety or whatever, but it makes it so that the gap you have to get in between the pillar and the steering wheel is pretty small and sort of inelegant. So it's true for rear passengers, they get a huge opening, and really maybe that's what this car is more about. And it's kind of rhetorical. It is what this car is more about. But let's face it, in the States, when people buy these things, they buy them to drive, not to be driven in. Next thing up on the list of stuff that's less than great is the backup camera, which I know seems a little ridiculous, but this car is a bit difficult to see behind you without it, and during the day it works fine. You get grid lines that work sort of as you'd expect, right? It tells you how far you're going to go before you run into stuff. But at night, because of the light for the license plate, it blinds almost half of it, and as a result makes it pretty much useless after it gets dark out. This car comes in at $122,000. So it is one of the signature series BMWs, which means you get special badging, special door sills, some more executive offerings in paint colors and interior colors. This one is a brownish black, which is a special option. It adds $3,000 or $4,000 to the price, with this very light colored cream interior, which is pretty to look at, but does get enormously dirty. In the time that we've had it, I can tell you the floor mats are already half filthy, and I've kicked the door panel a couple of times as a result of that tiny opening, and tiny for the size of car that this thing is. The other thing that BMW is yet to be able to do is make a car that works with polarized sunglasses. I know that may seem like a niggly thing, but all the sunglasses I own are polarized. I just enjoy them more. And as a result of having them, you need to sort of look like the RCA dog to be able to see the heads-up display, which should be really nice, but in sunglasses it basically disappears. This display for, climate control, all that kind of stuff, does the same thing. It goes all kludgy depending on which way you've got your head angled. It's one of those things I just don't know why in today's world can't they build screens that work with polarized glasses. A lot of people have them. It's been a complaint for a long time with BMW. You'd kind of expect that in their flagship-ish, understanding there's still a 12-cylinder model above this, they can't resolve that issue. I have 3 more reasonably major complaints about the 7 Series. One is their new steering system that they're putting in cars, and this car has all-wheel steering, so the rears can move, with the front wheels when you're in traffic to merge lanes without turning the car, and at slow speeds they can turn opposite to the front wheels. As a result, the turning circle on this car is amazingly small for the length. Kudos there. But this thing, if you get into any kind of enthusiastic driving, and by that I even mean like you're on an on-ramp to a highway, and it's, you just decide to sort of stomp on a little bit to get into traffic at regular moving speeds, the steering becomes so artificially heavy. I mean, it just is like a big dead weight you're sort of wrestling with, and that's even in sort of normal modes. It's the BMW system of you've got Comfort, Comfort Plus, Eco Pro, which we'll talk about a little bit, and then Sport and Sport Plus. Well, in Sport Plus, the steering wheel's always unnecessarily heavy without providing an enormous amount of communication about what's going on, and for no good reason. Complaint remaining number 2, this car is outfitted with the $7,000-ish, maybe $6,500 Bang & Olufsen stereo, which gets you the little cute pop-up thing on the dashboard and these nice aluminum paneled grill guards, which each hole's individually drilled to appropriately route sound to your ears. Well, here's my thought on this stereo, and I have to say it's pretty universal across all of the B&O stereos I've experienced. Maybe if you're into like a concert piano symphony type listening, and very well if you're buying a $122,000 BMW, that may be the case. But if it's not, it just doesn't have enough raw grunt to it, this stereo. It gets loud from a mid-range and treble perspective, but there's cars that cost an eighth of what this car costs that have more bottom end to the stereos. Is the bottom end of it clear? Yes, but if you try to play anything with a real bass line in it, rap, R&B, modern pop, any of the sort of crap you hear on pop radio, it can't actually, it's not like it scales perfectly. It does actually get muddy and muddled at the top levels. When you hear a stereo like this, you kind of expect it to be super clear, super crisp, but as you continue to crank the dial, it just to linearly get louder and more powerful. Well, this does to an extent, but at some point the bass response of it just peters off and becomes sort of a muddy, farty disappointment. Final thing about the BMW 750 long wheelbase that I have an issue with is with the technology. One, for $122,000, it's missing a very critical package, which is the driver assistance package, which gets you laser guided cruise control or radar guided cruise control or whatever you want to call it. The cruise control that allows the car to follow a car ahead of it in traffic. Now, I can understand if BMW didn't want to include the one that'll come to a complete stop and pull away again, and that required a special package. But the fact that the base version of it is not included in a car that's this expensive, as far as I'm concerned, is a misstep. It's just one of those things that removes some of the luxury of driving a car like this on the highway in the fact that it's not there. The other thing is it has a lot of automated features, like it has automatic windshield wipers, but every time you get in the car, you got to turn the damn things on. Why in the world? And it's not tied to memory seats, and I'm sure if there's a way to do it, one of our wonderful commenters will point it out, but every time you get in the car, you got to turn it back on. It's got automatic high beam, but same thing, you got to push a button every time you get in the car to turn them on. There just is a lot of that BMW-ish stuff, like the settings on the transmission and on the chassis, that they reset back to neutral every time you get in the car, and I really don't think they should. It's the type of car that you'd sort of expect to remember what you want if you tie it to your memory settings on your seat or your key. The final thing about the BMW 7 Series that we've had, at least, is this one at this point now has 2,800 miles on it. I was driving it to a meeting one day, and as I'm driving along, all the dummy lights come on, and it tells me that it's basically out of oil. Well, that's very strange. The BMW service interval on their cars has gotten to be so long. It's like 15,000 miles almost across their entire range at this point. Why in the world was this thing out of oil after, at that point, it had 2,500 miles on it? Now, credit where credit's due. BMW, you press your button on the telemetry system, you get a nice BMW advisor, they tell you where your next BMW service center is, and in 6 minutes I was in and out of the service center with a fresh couple quarts of oil in the car. So, is it nice that you get great service at BMW? Yes. Is it nice that for 50,000 miles all the service is included with this car? Absolutely. Is it a little concerning that the engine was low on oil after 2,400 miles? Yeah, it was. And that isn't where the issues end. This car also is supposed to have the sort of open sesame magic rear liftgate on it, meaning that if you walk up to the car with your hand full of packages and attempt to, put your foot underneath the rear bumper and even bump a little bit, the trunk's supposed to open. Well, I can tell you it's been successful for me 1 in 10 times, if that. I've gotten it to work twice, and the rest of the time you're standing there with like 2 pizza boxes in your hands, kicking the back of your car, looking like a flat-out idiot. So, pretty rough, right? And, full disclosure, this is the first BMW's provided to me to review on video. So, I'm giving it a pretty rough time and knowing that BMW's probably not going to be happy about it, and this may be the last one that you see us in. But I do think it's important to be honest and fair to everybody out there about our experiences with it. So, with that said, here's the good news. The 4.4 liter V8 that is twin turbocharged at this point for BMW, that's in this car, has gained a bunch of horsepower, 20 or so, and some foot-pounds of torque. I believe like 20 or so again, and it does an amazing job of motivating something this big. The other thing is the transmission that's in this car. So the 8-speed automatic unit that's in this, even in full-on Sport Plus, turned everything off mode, does a really wonderful job. It's never really confused by its gearing. It shifts quickly but very smoothly. I mean, it does lead to a very luxurious experience in how smoothly this thing transitions between gears. The all-wheel drive steering system does a very nice job of putting the car where you want it. Sure, the steering feel is very mute, but it does work quite well. This car also comes with BMW's XDrive, their all-wheel drive system, which, of course, adds a little bit to the price, adds a little bit to the weight of the car, and detracts a little bit from fuel economy. Does work well, though. It's basically a transparent system. You never really notice it's working except for when you're on wet roads like we are today and you're going to pull away from a stop sign, and you don't just get a bunch of rear wheel spin. It tries to spin all the wheels. The other thing you have to commend BMW for is, even in this beastly long, heavy car, if you put it in full sport mode and hold the traction control button, it will turn both traction and dynamic stability control off. Now, I don't know if you touch the brakes, if it pops it back on or not yet. I haven't experienced it, but we have gotten the car a bit sideways, which is possible even in the all-wheel drive version, and it'll let you do it. It doesn't start intervening. So credit where credit's due. It's nice that BMW will still let you sort of put things in your own hands if you so choose. So with all of that, you notice it's about, really, most of the complaints are about driving. And as I mentioned when I started this car should be, in my opinion, less about driving and more about being a rear seat passenger in. Sentence ended with a preposition. Well, from that standpoint, it's lovely. The rear seats are big, super comfortable. In this one, they have the extra rear seat luxury package for another $6,500, which gets you heating, ventilation, and massage back there. You get full power controls. In fact, you get a whole secondary iDrive system in the rear seats. You get footrests. This one has TVs with a DVD changer that lives in the dashboard. It is a very, very nice setup and system in the rear seat. So if you are an executive who's lucky enough to be given a company car with a driver, it's a very solid choice. I will say the ride from a suspension perspective is as good as you're going to get across the three choices. And in my eyes, you compare this car to the S-Class Mercedes and the AA Audi. It's true there's some other options out there, but they're significantly more expensive and in a bit of a different league. I guess you could say the LS Lexus is also a choice. And that, from a ride perspective and a noise, harshness, vibration, how quiet it is in here perspective, I think matches this car. But it doesn't have the same performance and acceleration and all that kind of good stuff. So, if you're a rear seat passenger and this is what you're looking for, it's a solid choice from that perspective. It looks quite good with the Signature Series that this one is. You get, special standalone 19-inch wheels, the badging, and, really nice interior appointments. This one even has an Alcantara headliner, which I have to say does add quite a bit to sort of the feel and the quality of the car to see that up there. The switchgear's good. BMW's technology system with iDrive has its lovers and its haters. I live in about the middle of that. I think the control knob's great. This one also has ceramic controls, so all the pieces that you touch up here are made out of a very nice feeling ceramic material. I think that the card-based interface where you swipe cards across, so you start to look at it, it swipes over and then back over and back over again and back over again and back over again. Works well. I still think from a human user interface perspective, the 4-quadrant system that some of the other manufacturers are going to is a little better, but this giant screen that BMW gives you is quite good, very clear, and has no issues with polarized glasses. So, where does that leave us? Well, it leaves us with $122,000 in BMW. That, in my opinion, from a driving perspective, is, I don't know what happened to BMW. There's just no other way to put it. It's not that great of a driver's car. Sure, it's fast. Its handling limits are quite high. It's neutral, but the tactile touches and feels that you get with this car really aren't great. They don't work all that well. From a passenger perspective, it's very nice. If you're going to sit in the rear seat, it's great. But again, if you're going to buy this car to be the primary driver on a daily basis, I think the ingress-egress issue with this door pillar is an actual problem. I think that it's not super nice up here from a driving perspective, but as I said, it's a giant car that'll wiggle its hips if really provoked. So if you're looking to drive it, I'd go look for some of the other brands out there, or the shorter wheelbase one. If you're looking to be driven in it, it's a very solid choice. And with that, I'm Kevin Gordon from AutoSavant.com. I look forward to talking to you guys soon.